Welcome back to the Director's Garage. Can you believe we're here? I am your host and resident idiot, Michael. And today, folks, we're going to be taking a deeper look into the Noble Audio Focus Apollo with an old-fashioned shootout.
Help?
Too much? Well, the headphone we're going to be comparing it to is this one, the Focal Bathys. Oui, oui.
Bonjour.
Clearly, Noble has targeted the Bathys with the release of the Apollo. The Noble costs a little bit less, by about $50 or so, but can it turn this French Focal into a French fry?
Hey!
Will this Sophie's choice end in disaster? Well, this is the Director's Garage, so the answer would be likely. Now, I'm a fan of full disclosure, and I gotta tell you, Noble sent me this headphone to review. I get to keep these, which means that I'll be giving them away to you guys at some point. You know how I roll. The Bathys, though, I purchased with my own cold, hard cash back when I had money. But we broke, folks. In fact, click the subscribe and the like and all that stuff because you'd really be helping your brother out. Now, the Noble, though, it presents a bunch of achievements for the brand. It's their first over-ear. It's their first true wireless over-ear. This thing can movie. This thing can game. It comes with a swanky boom mic. No, I'm just kidding, guys. This thing's removable.
Okay.
By contrast, the Noble's mics are in the ear cups, so you gotta give some early points to this Apollo. But let's talk about this matchup a bit. There are real situations where you might prefer one of these headphones over the other. Like, you might prefer, say, The Godfather over Star Wars. They're significantly different in many ways, but they're both really cool, you know? The Bathys and the Apollo are so different in experience, I don't know that winning is going to be an easy call here. The Apollo has brains and balls, and the Bathys has texture and refinement. It comes down to which of those different properties you place a greater value on and how you plan on using the headphones. There are some knockdown blows in this review, but you won't find any battle-ending knockouts. This fight's going to the scorecards, so let's get it on.
Check out the ergonomics.
Let's talk about ergos, guys. There are a lot of pluses and minuses for each of these headphones, and ergos are ridiculously important when you're talking about a Bluetooth product like this. The first one, it's an easy one. We're going to call it a case study, because we got to talk about these two cases. The Bathys, look at this. It's a featherweight, super thin and sleek. They barely take up any space at all. Then look at this Apollo. Whoa, somebody needs a diet, right? This case is a heavyweight. Who wants to sit next to a sumo wrestler on an airplane? But when it comes to comfort, you know, you're on a long flight, you kind of want that plush first-class seat, don't you? Let's talk about comfort. This one's another easy call. The Bathys are more comfortable. They feel softer on the head. The cups are bigger, deeper, and the clamp is just a bit lighter. It feels better. They even feel cushy. Think Steve Martin and John Candy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Those aren't pillows.
The Apollo wears closer on your ear. The cups feel smaller. They cradle your ears. This is getting ridiculous. I'm sorry, I can't keep a straight face. But looking at these two, they appear to be around the same size. I just feel more confined on the Apollo, like I'm in a space capsule. Yeah, my apologies to the 10 of you who watched the review of the Apollo. I just recycled that photo and you didn't even know it. There's no need to click this link right here, right? All right, but if you have smaller ears, the Apollo will be more to your liking. For me, big Dumbo ears like mine, I preferred the Bathys. The top band is a little bit wider and fatter too, just cushier all around on the Bathys.
Open up the style file.
Opening up the style file. Well, looks-wise, guys, I like the look of both of these headphones. I think the Focal has a distinct look. It's got these drilled holes that's very Focal, and it's got the flashy lit F on the sides. You can turn this off, by the way, with the app. I think that the Apollo is more sophisticated. It's less flash. It's more upscale. It's Bose-like in appearance. These are for the Grey Poupon crowd, you know? It just comes down to taste, but both of them have a cool factor. Think about, like, the difference between Dave Matthews and Prince. Well, Prince is way cooler, though. Let's be honest. Okay. The Bathys, though, they are less prone to microphonics. You can rub around on this headphone, and it doesn't transfer all that much through the housing. Versus the Apollo, this thing is way more susceptible to those microphonics. You can hear any kind of touch on the casing. So now it kind of looks like this Bathys is kind of crawling back into this fight. App appreciation. Who writes this shit? Okay. Well, both apps are good, but the Noble app really outpunches the Focal app. The EQ is better. You get 10 bands versus 5 bands. You get better presets. It's more intuitive. The Focal includes something called sound personalization. I tried it. It kind of made everything sound worse, but it plays a series of tones and you try and affect your hearing and it does a compensation thing. I don't know. It didn't work too well for me. But a viewer did write in and swore by it, but I would score a jab or two here for the Apollo. Both of these headphones have removable ear pads. The Focal, you just yank it off. With the Apollo, you got to use a screwdriver, get in there with a guitar pick, something with a little bit of leverage on it. I had this wrong in the unboxing video, but neither of these use a standard ear pad system. You can't just swap out your other Focal ear pads. Why? Why do they do this? They changed to a clip mounting system instead of the standard posts that every other Focal uses. It's a total bummer. The Apollo can be changed, but there aren't any offerings on the market yet, so you can't go out and buy a Dakoni leather like you can for this one. This one, you can get suede for them. Any kind of replacement pad you want, you can get on this Focal Bathys, and I place a really high value on comfort, as you know. It's the Bathys for me. So the Ergos go heavily for the Bathys, but oh, this Apollo is about to stage a counterattack with one big punch. Yeah, ANC, guys, active noise cancellation. Now, I said in the unboxing video that the Bathys was dead silent when music wasn't playing. That is untrue, as I rediscovered while doing this shootout. I guess I must have been tuning it out or something. There's a hiss on the Bathys too, and it's a higher pitched and more prominent than on this Noble Apollo Focus. The Apollo is more of a low rumble. Add to that, the Apollo has the best noise canceling of any ANC headphone I've ever heard, ever. I snap my fingers next to the cup. I can barely hear them through the Apollo. I can hear it clearly with the Bathys. When I rustle my fingers together, I can't hear anything on the Apollo, with or without the ANC engaged. So you get excellent passive noise cancellation on the Apollo. On the Bathys, I can hear anything doing this. And get this, the Bathys doesn't even have an off mode for the ANC. It's either on high, low, or pass-through. For ANC, both passive and active, the Apollo is the best I've heard, and it gets better. The Apollo also kills the Bathys on battery life, 80 or 60 hours with or without ANC engaged versus just 30 hours on the Bathys as a whole. That's a real power deficit, and for what it's worth, the passive ANC on the Apollo feels so good, I don't need to engage ANC other than on an airplane. On the Focal, it's a real miss that you can't turn the ANC off. It seems like this would be easy to add through a firmware update. I'm not sure why they haven't done it. So for noise abatement and isolation, it's an easy call. But the Apollo keeps getting better. You don't even have to have the Apollo turned on to use the headphone. You can plug these things in like any other wired headphone and start listening. Run out of power? Just plug in the wire. The Bathys, you must have them powered on to get sound through them, even if you have them wired. So if you run out of battery, you're going to have to charge them before you can resume listening. On a travel headphone, these are big, huge, solid wins for the Apollo here. Now let's talk about the buttons. Now I have one slight annoyance on the Apollo, and that's that this ANC button rattles like a snake when you shake your head. That's a design flaw I would like to see addressed. Other than that, Button layout is decent, and it's a win for the Apollo. The middle button has a nice nub on it. It informs your fingers exactly what button you're pressing. It's easy to play pause. You can move the volume so you can get it just right. The Bathys is good, but it's just a little harder to make out where that switch is without looking. So for button layouts, yeah, I will favor the Apollo, though I really find that rattly ANC button a little annoying. Okay, that was a lot on just the ergos, and each have some solid advantages, but we got to start talking about sound. And to understand the sound, we got to understand the drivers first. And the Focal Bathys comes with a single 40mm aluminum magnesium alloy dynamic driver. This cone is called an M design for its shape, and I'm reasonably certain it's the exact same driver you're going to find in the Haydnus and the Azurus. It's the same material, size, and shape anyway. It's a tried and tested driver. Very quick, very responsive. The Noble, by contrast, has a dual driver setup. It's real space age stuff. There's a 40mm dynamic driver of unknown construct and a 14.5mm planar magnetic driver. The dynamic driver brings elevated bass presence and impact, while the super responsive planar brings speed and clarity up top. Both of these designs have advantages in different ways. Let's break that down. The Bathys to me has the better image. There's more of a pinpoint location of the instruments around your head, and the Bathys combines that with an elevated upper mid, and that gives me the impression of greater clarity. A tom roll across the channel sounds more precise and defined on the Bathys. Singers have greater separation between them. There's a space also between instruments that I hear, and I think it's important enough to give the Bathys the whole category of imaging. The Apollo does have a better soundstage to me in the way that it creates a space, an environment around your head. You get a greater sense of width and dimensionality. They're enjoyable to spend time with, and I attribute this to the fact that the planar is closer to your ear than the dynamic driver, so you get more of an environmental feel out of the Apollo, whereas the Focal is a little more traditional in presentation. If you like soundstage, I'd say that the Apollo is your headphone, but if you lean into image, it's going to be the Bathys. The Bathys has a little more air around the instruments too. And if all that sounds a bit strange, wait until we get to detail. All right, this is going to get a little complicated and may even sound like I'm bullshitting you. I'm just telling you what I hear, guys. That's all I can do. The Apollo sounds more detailed to my ears. I get a sharper attack on notes, and they feel more responsive and crisper. But that's not the whole story here, because the Bathys has more mid presence, and that gives this headphone greater clarity to my ears. Add to this, the Bathys has a more natural overall sound. The Apollo sounds a bit more technical and affected, and although the Apollo is better on detail, I like the clarity of this Bathys, and they sound more natural to me. And if I'm choosing between detail and clarity, I gotta say, I think the clarity of the Focal is more to my preference. But we're really going back and forth here in each of these categories. Each has distinct advantages and its scoring points. The next area is a big one, and it's where the Apollo again is gonna bloody the Bathys. Dynamics, folks. The impact factor, and the Apollo has it. If you want slammy bass, and I sure do, the Apollo is going to completely trounce the Bathys. These things slam like a cellar door on a dungeon. They punch hard and they are fun. The Bathys, well, they have nice texture, but they just don't move air the way the Apollo does. The Apollo thumps and booms. Yeah, there's some bloom there too. It's a little messy, but who cares when you're having this much fun? The Bathys just took a knee in the middle rounds, but can they get off the canvas?
I'm lost without sound structure. Ain't no basses, no trebles or mids.
All right, let's get into sound structure. We're going to be talking about mids and bass and treble. And the Apollo, well, it has this deep V tuning. It's a lot of fun. Mids are completely recessed in presentation. The highs and the lows get the push. The Bathys are more neutral. There's a flatter presentation. It's kind of almost a W tune, if anything. The bass is there on the Bathys. These dig into the sub, but they just don't push bass the way the Apollo does. The Noble has bass for days. It's Bassy McBasserson. There's more booty here than Nicki Minaj at a Kim Kardashian bash. The Bathys has a tasteful sound, kind of the opposite of the Ergos when you think about it. The Bathys are these flashy headphones with a refined sound, and the Apollo is the sophisticated headphone that parties down. They're exact opposites. Then you get to the mids, and on the Bathys you get tremendous presence and texture up and down the frequency range. On some tracks it can present a little on the bright side, generally not an issue, but on something like, say, the Violent Femmes, this isn't a headphone I'd reach for. Jazz? Well, now you're talking, right? The Apollo, though, it pulls back some of those mids and then comes roaring back with a graceful and detailed treble with good sparkle. It's a phenomenal tuning. There's still a good treble back on the Bathys here, but it's not shouting at all. These are very settled and clean, very competent and comparatively refined. The Apollo, meantime, it kind of gets its groove on. Very musical, fun. Each of these two are amazing in their own way. If you're into just the music, I'm going to tell you right now, like if you love jazz, you love classical, you like doing critical style listening, audiophile stuff, acoustic music, the Bathys is the headphone I prefer. If you like hip-hop, rock, watching movies, listening to soundtracks, the thump-thump of EDM, I think the Apollo is more the way to go. The Bathys are cohesive. The Apollo is more relaxed and musical, but each have earned a righteous place at the table. If I could only have one of these headphones, which would I choose? Well, I'll tell you, up until my trip over the holidays, and that'll give you a little window on how long this episode has been planned, guys. I started this before New Year's, but I would have chosen the Bathys. The Bathys won this shootout, full stop. Because on a trip, space is a premium, and these fold to half the height of the Apollo. They're more realistic in sound, which is the point of any headphone, and the Bathys out-images the Apollo. These things are a conversation starter, too, with this LED trick. I'm always asked about these on planes, and I like meeting and talking about headphones with people, so it's kind of fun. And, well, yeah, there's a huge battery improvement on the Apollo, but how many plane rides extend beyond 8 hours? Very few. In the end, it came down to sound, space, and comfort, and I did prefer the Bathys over the Apollo. Or did I? Yeah, and then I took that trip, guys, where I took both pairs of headphones with me, and I gotta tell you, the noise cancellation on this Apollo is so far superior to the Bathys. I came to the conclusion, what's the point of great sound if it's drowned out by a plane? Plus, you get far superior battery life and that great spatial effect. As for size, well, guess which Bluetooth headphone happens to fit perfectly inside the Focal slimmer case? Yep, that's a problem solved. They are not as comfortable, and that is a trade-off for me, but I came to the conclusion that if I were flying, which is pretty much the number one job of any ANC over-ear headphone, at least to my way of thinking, the noise cancellation tipped the scales in favor of the Noble Focus Apollo in real-world use. So does this make the Bathys a bad headphone? Hell no. In fact, if I were in a less noisy area, like an office, and I used this very headphone at my office for a number of years, the Bathys would be my choice over the Apollo. You get upgraded fidelity, increased comfort, and a little less noise cancellation isn't much of a trade-off, in my opinion.
Wrap this damn show up.
So let's start bringing this all home. What does it all mean, he asks. Well, you can tell by the shootout that neither of these headphones knocks the other out. There are terrific use cases for both the Noble Apollo and the Focal Bathys. On straight sonics, it's the Bathys for me, unless I'm watching a movie or listening to music that has a lot of fun bass drive, but most of the music I listen to falls outside of the EDM or metal worlds, though I do occasionally dip into both. But the noise cancellation of the Apollo, both passive and active, make this an easy call. You got great battery life, too. Just buy them if you have the money. You're not going to regret it. Likewise, if you're not buying an over-ear noise cancellation Bluetooth headphone for plane travel, the Bathys are probably going to be the better option because of their comfort and superior sound. If you're making calls, well, the Apollo has this swanky boom mic, and who doesn't love a boom mic? Right? I hardly mentioned it. So as I wrap this one up, I gotta say that although I did choose the Apollo for the purposes of this shootout as the winner, in truth, you're not going to go wrong with either of these two headphones. So that's the Noble Audio Focus Apollo, a $650 dual driver headphone that delivers a lot of stellar ANC and a lot of great listening. I got to give a shout out to my friends at Noble for sending these my way. John, Jim, Kai Moulton, the entire team there. These guys work their tails off to produce amazing products, and they're really fun to review. Great work, guys. And you can pick up this headphone or the Focal Bathys at Audio 46. Use the coupon code Directors Garage. You'll save a few bucks. We've got more Directors Garage on the way, believe it or not. It's been a minute, including my in-depth review of the Eversolo DMP A6. I've been doing so many fun things with that unit. I can't wait to share that with you. So make sure you... Thanks for hanging out here at the garage today. Sorry this episode was a little bit delayed. There's an episode of my live stream up here that kind of digs into the issues, but give this episode a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And you can do the other thing if that's what you're into. Either way, I can't say I blame you, and I will see you guys before you know it.
Let's all